The Girl Who Did Everything, a modernized grim retelling based on The Two King's Children. Once upon a time, there was a girl who was warned from birth that life would try to break her. Then a prince stumbled upon this beautiful princess, and he fell in love with her on sight. He decided to ask for her father for her hand in marriage. And the father, not wanting to give up his daughter, decided to create an impossible task for him to complete in order to have his daughter. He had asked the prince to cut down the forest, drain the pond, and fill it with fish, all by the morning, giving him barely any tools and barely any resources to do it. The prince tried his best with all his might to do this task, but realized that it was too much for him, and he gave up. The princess, not wanting to give up on this, prince decided to lull her father to sleep, and she called in every favor that she had and used the powers that she once had to secretly work through the night with these magical little ants that helped her to cut down the forest, drain the pond, and fill it all with fish. And she did all this while the prince had already given up and fell asleep under a tree. That next morning, when he woke up, he was like, wow, I knew I could do it. And he didn't wonder how it happened. He just took all the credit for himself. And so he decided to go back to the father, show him the work that he'd done. And the father was obviously baffled, had no idea how he could do it, but he made a promise and told him that he could have her daughter. So he decided to give her daughter to him. And he loved her and she loved him. But the father changed his mind, decided to run after them. And so they ran away together. In order to survive, she again called in her favors and used some of her magical powers to turn them into something else. That way the father would not be able to catch them. The first thing they turned into was a rose. The second was a church. And lastly was a duck on a pond. Eventually the father gave up, decided that it wasn't worth it, and decided the prince could have his daughter. Next up, the prince brings back the daughter to his kingdom, and his mother decides that this girl is not fit for her son, and decides to introduce him to someone simpler, someone who asks less of him. And all of a sudden, the prince forgot all about the promises that he had made with the princess and decided to go with this new girl. Instead of falling apart and giving up on their love, she decided to go to work. She had some walnuts left over from her grandmother, and each of these walnuts had something that would allow her to win back the prince. The first walnut was a stunning dress, which she wore to the engagement party to try and get the prince to notice her. The second walnut had another dress that she wore to the wedding rehearsal, again to no avail. And lastly, the third walnut had the most beautiful, stunning dress that she wore to the actual wedding. And this is when the prince was able to snap out of his delusion and realize that he had made a promise to this girl and this is the one for him. At the end, he says, I remember. I'm sorry. I didn't see what you were carrying. And she said, I know. That was always the problem. They married at the end, and she made herself a promise that she would never again make herself invisible to the one she loved and would never place anyone's needs above her own. And in the end, whether he kept his promise to her, the story doesn't say, but she kept hers. So, taking a look at this story from a Freudian lens, the main idea is about emotional labor and neglect. So the daughter, she represents the overlooked inner resource. She is always the one doing all the work in the beginning. She's the one who completed the impossible task. She's the one that helped them escape from her father. And the prince really didn't do much of anything, really. And he repaid her at the end with, betraying her, basically. He takes all the credit from all of her hard work, and he never confronts his own shadow and his own incompetence. The impossible task that symbolizes the emotional labor that, in this case, the daughter or women in general have to perform invisibly behind the scenes in order to support their man, and sometimes with no acknowledgement or praise from their partner at all. And then the forgetting shows how these tasks go unnoticed by the man. The prince forgets the princess, the daughter, and chooses another woman even after everything she's done for him. The three walnuts, these are the things that women have to do in order to publicly be seen and be recognized, even though she's already been saved by someone. So again, just extra work. And lastly, the open ending. I made this ending since I didn't want it to be a normal, necessarily fairy tale where it's just happily ever after, but I also didn't necessarily like her rejecting the man prince at the end of the day, because people can change, right? And this is a problem, but if the prince decides to change his ways, acknowledge and also help out the daughter and realize his own shortcomings, then it can still be a healthy and long-lasting relationship.